So I'd ask for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Meg, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Austin? Don't think I saw Nancy. Mr. Castagnoli?
Sorry, Nancy's here.
Oh, hi, Nancy. Very good. Thanks. Mr. Castagnoli? Mr. Cater?
Present.
Mr. Collegian?
President.
Ms. Kearney?
Present.
Mr. Mortimer?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Quish?
Here.
Mr. Sadi?
Present.
Mr. Zaharidis?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. Just for a note to the public, item number 5, 161 West Rutland Road will not be heard tonight. It will be heard on the 12:15 meeting. So our first order of business is 125, 135 Broad Street, Zone MCDD, an amendment to the site plan for a request for a finding of parking adequacy for 19 shared parking spaces where 178 spaces are provided for a proposed restaurant on map 54, block 394, parcel 14, of which Metro 135 LLC is the owner. One thing I would note is that when we approved the site plan at a previous meeting, it was a public meeting, but it was not required to be a public meeting. In the case where if it was a required public meeting, the amendment would be also required to be public. This, however, does not need to be a public hearing. It can just be heard by the board. So with that opinion, I would hand it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert Smith, Managing Director of MetroStar Properties, which is the member of Metro 135 LLC. And we're here tonight to ask permission from the board to share 19 parking spaces to allow a restaurant to be used in the formal funeral home building. Very exciting opportunity for, I think, for downtown to convert this beautiful building into a wonderful restaurant. We are not asking for a waiver of parking. We're just asking to share 19 of the 178 parking spaces. Kind of logically, this would be the 30 parking spaces that are allocated for the commercial uses, the office spaces that kind of close at 5 o'clock and release those 30 parking spaces. We would look to share 19 of them during the busy period in the evening for the restaurant. That sums it up.
Okay. Thank you. David, would you comment on the application?
Sure. The applicant is asking for an amendment to the previously approved site plan for a mixed use, introducing an eating place restaurant to the site. Under 321.35, on-site parking is being requested to be determined by the board to be found adequate. 19 additional spaces for the restaurant use would be required. The site has a total of 178 spaces on site.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
It's my understanding that sometimes we waive parking requirements for restaurants downtown. Is that correct? Has that been processed in the past?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look, there's some restaurants that have absolutely zero on-site parking. It's kind of something that, the previous planning apparatus was in favor of restaurants downtown. That was sort of the draw.
Yeah, and just to make clear, This isn't a parking waiver. They have parking. They're just asking under the regulations to share the parking with the two uses. And that's a regulation that's found in many zones. But to add on to what the chair said, yeah, findings of parking adequacy downtown are very common. The only restaurants that don't have it are ones that existed prior to zoning. Everyone else downtown has been granted basically waivers because they don't have parking on site or they have minimal parking on site.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Request Mr. Sadi to make a motion, please.
Sure.
I move to approve as presented the petition of Metro 135 LLC for an amendment to the site plan for finding of parking adequacy of 19 shared spaces where 178 are provided for a proposed restaurant on map 54, block 394, parcel 14 of which Metro 135 LLC is the owner, with no conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have Mr. Castagnoli. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Go ahead. Somebody's speaking? Brian? No? Beg, if you would call the roll for a vote.
Sure. Ms. Austin,
With the motion?
Mr. Castagnoli,
In favor of the motion.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian. That was with the motion, yes?
The motion.
Okay, Miss
and
Kearney,
With the motion?
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion?
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion,
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
With the motion.
Thank you.
So that was unanimous. Thank you. And good luck with the restaurant.
Yeah, thank you very much for your help.
yeah, great idea. Love it.
Beautiful building.
Yeah, can't wait.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay, our next order of business is a public hearing. It's 37 Blair Street, Zone R5, petition of William Piacitelli for a special permit and coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 27, block 452, parcel 10, of which William Piacitelli is the owner. Is the applicant here or represented?
I'm here.
Hello.
Hi. My name is William Piacitelli, Piacitelli. I'm the owner of 37 Blair Street. I'm attempting to build a single-family home for my wife, my daughter, and my grandson, and myself, obviously. I understand that because my deck is within 25 feet of the mean high water mark, I need to have a special permit. So that's why I'm here.
Okay. David, would you provide an overview?
Sure. The applicant is constructing a new 33-foot, 3.5-inch single-family dwelling, replacing a dwelling that was previously on the site. The site abuts tidal wetlands known as the Great Creek. The proposed deck comes within 14 feet of the mean high tide line. The mean high tide line runs through the property on its western side, south orientation on the survey. The Inland Wetlands Agency requires that a detailed design of the proposed rain garden be submitted and approved prior to a zoning permit being issued. The plan does not appear to pose an adverse environmental impact.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Anything?
Can I ask a question? So
Sure.
there's an existing house there currently, or was, right? They're going to
Yes.
raise that?
Yep. I'm trying to, yeah.
Was there a deck off the back before, and how close was that before?
No, there's a small little deck as you come up the stairs to go into the main entrance. There was a little deck there, but that's about it. There's not much there.
And how far was that away? Because the new one's gonna be like 14 feet away, right? So what is that gonna be?
Oh, let's see. I have my site guy here with me.
Love here.
29 feet. 29 feet.
29 feet?
Yeah.
29 feet.
Okay.
So David, just to clarify, this is not a setback requirement. It's not. It does not require any kind of a variance. It just needs our approval because it is close to the tidal wetland.
Right. The deck is 14 feet away from the mean height tide line. Any construction that occurs within 25 feet of the mean height tide line triggers the special permit. In this case, this public hearing that you have this evening. If they didn't have this deck and there was nothing within 25 feet, it would be just a standard CAM application.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments from the board?
So Cam has looked, I'm sorry, Cam has looked at this and you said there was no adverse environmental effects, so.
Correct.
David, that was to you.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, good. So this is a public hearing. So I would ask that if anybody would like to speak to the issue from the general public, please raise your hand either electronically or just wave. David will recognize you and state your name and address for the record and say what you will.
Okay, so I see no blue hands. If anyone would like to speak, please wave and I will recognize you. I don't see anybody waving, going once. No one waving, going twice. Mr. Chair, there's no one who would like to speak on this.
Okay, great. So then at that point, we will close the public hearing. The applicant, you have an opportunity to close with anything you'd like to say.
Well, I've been trying to get this project done for probably 7 years. I've really worked hard at it. I'm not giving up.
You're getting close.
Milford. I love Milford. I've lived in that little house, for the summers forever. It's just a great town, and I'd really love to. I sold my house in Monroe, and I had it with the woods. I want to live by the beach.
Welcome back. So anyway, with that, I would hear a motion.
Mr. Sadi here. I move to approve as presented petition of William Piacitelli for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 27, block 452, parcel 10, of which William Piacitelli is the owner.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Did we miss the closing of the public hearing? Or did
No, we closed that before the applicant made his final statement.
Right.
Thank you, though, Carl. We do have a motion and a second. Mr. Castagnoli, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, would you please call the vote?
Okay, Mr. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
I'm in favor.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion?
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion,
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm in favor.
Thank
So
you.
that's unanimous. Good luck with your construction and welcome back to the beach.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good-
Have a
good
great
luck.
year. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Okay, so our next order of business is 535, 543 Plains Road, Zone R18 and Zone R30. Petition of Kevin Cresadian Esquire for a change of zone on map 62, block 928, parcel 8, of which Patricia J. McAndrew is the owner. The applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Cresadian. I'm at 3 Lafayette Street here in Milford. With me tonight is Dan Thornburg. He is the business partner and in that context, the co-applicant for this application. The applicant, Nick Marlowe, is not available. I'm not sure, David, if I can share my screen, if you can give me the authority to do.
Yeah, hold on. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. What should be presented right now on the screen is the existing zone lines along Plains Road. When we originally, the applicant is actually the contract purchaser of the property. And when I originally spoke with Mr. Sulkus about this a few months ago, when we were talking about the application originally, at least my recollection of his thought and my thought was that what most likely happened here is either a scrivener's error for the map or a mistake or some type of accident, or it was a ill-intentioned drafting. Because typically you would not draw a zone line through the center of a property. You would make the property, at least that property, at least uniform. So the thought process was that possibly, or most likely, when the zone was changed from R30 to R18, that happened in 1973. The intent was to at least have the R18 zone on the northerly side of Plains Road wrap around the back of each parcel. And because this 535, 543 Plains Road parcel was larger than the other standard house size or building lot size parcels, it just didn't make it that way. If you look at the property immediately to the west or to the left, it's partially R18, partially R30, and partially LI. That's where the old aerial lock building was. I don't know the name of the owner of the property now, just to give you some kind of reference. If you look at Cornfield Drive also, all of those properties are actually 18,500 square feet, 15, 23, 31, 14. And that was most likely done as a cluster because the zone is still R30. But the point being is that the lots are as if it was an R18 zone, 18,500 square feet. So that's the context for it. I don't know if this is something that the board could have taken on its own if it had caught it or thought it was an error from the past. I'm just going to show you what we're asking to do. We're asking to make this entire property 535, 543 R18 zone. When a property is bifurcated by two different zones, it becomes difficult to plan for what you can do to the property. Part of the property has to comply with R18, the other part would have to comply with R30. There are variance cases that show that that would be a legitimate hardship if someone was going to seek a variance to try to do something over there. So this is really an effort to clean up the zone that we think it should have been originally and to allow the development of the property. If this, just so the board knows, if this is approved, my clients will be coming in with a subdivision sometime several months later. And the reason the subdivision plans are not provided to you now is that they're extremely expensive And if the zone change is not granted, then, that's money not well spent. So we didn't think that that was efficient. There is precedent for the board hearing applications for zone changes without subdivisions. I think the board has a regulation that if you're coming in with a site plan as part of a zone change, you have to provide that site plan application simultaneously with the zone change. We are not coming in with the site plan eventually, we're coming in with the subdivision. How many lots would be there? We're not sure. Could be anywhere from 4 to 7 lots. It really depends on the survey, the width of the road, what the engineering comments are, what the drainage would be. So right now, there's actually 3, I believe there's 3 residential units. There's several structures. The main house, or the house, I'm just going to flip up this screen a minute, see if I can. The house in the center of the property will remain. The other structures are anticipated to be torn down. The house that is fronting on Plains Road is in bad shape according to my clients, and that most likely would have to come down. And you would also need room to meet a city road or for a road into the proposed development. So that's not what we're here for tonight. The board would have an opportunity to comment and approve or deny that subdivision application in the future. This is just for the zone change to set the foundation for the subdivision application. And pending your comments, I mean, that's really what we're asking to do, or questions.
Okay, is that it, Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay. So, David, if you would give it your overview.
Sure. The proposed change is discretionary. It's a discretionary decision of the P&Z board. The applicant submitted all of the required paperwork and neighbor notifications required by section 10.1 to make the request. So there's no, because it's a discretionary decision, there's really nothing for me to really report. If you have any particular questions, I might be able to answer them, but basically this property could be either R30 or R18. So it's entirely up to the board.
So one question, if it was attempted to be developed without a zone change, then you'd probably get 5 houses?
Hard to tell. It depends on, again, if that line goes through and stays where it is, it's hard to tell because there's also a couple of different things. The city, even though there's a mapping, what appears to be a mapping error, the tax assessor has it listed as an R30. So if we were to go with an R30, then the division would be easy, 30,000 square feet for each house. Then the frontage becomes an issue. Do we have enough frontage? And you'd have to put in some sort of a road. So I couldn't tell you. I couldn't, without looking at a survey. Obviously, if it's R18, you can get a few more houses in there than you could if it were R30. That's the simple answer.
But there's a portion of it now that is R18.
On the map itself, yes, that's what's on the map, the Scrivener's error.
The zoning map.
On the zoning map.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Yep, several, Mr. Quish.
Yep.
Good evening, Attorney Crusaden. Glad to see you again. First and foremost, you're asking us to make the whole parcel in R18. Is that fair?
That's correct.
I'm just trying to figure out if you knew how I guess it's 539, how that got into what appears to be the original parcel. Did you ever find out how that was carved out of the original parcel that you had?
No, I'm not sure. I did. So as far as the subdivision or the division or the cutoff or the free split of that, I don't have a title search that goes back that far that tells me the answer to that question.
Okay, and the reason being is probably could be answered either by you or Mr. Sokas. We'd have to make a motion that a specific parcel of property, and we have a block and a page number and the like, but are we indicating that 539 is going to be part of that block and parcel if we use that as a metric to make the motion in affirmative? Do you understand, if you understand the question?
Yeah, no, 539 is a separate standalone parcel. I mean, yeah, I understand the question, but 539 is R18 and it would remain R18.
Okay, I have no further questions, Mr. Quish. Thank you very much, Mr. Crusaden.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Quish, may I just make one more comment? It's Kevin.
Yes, sure.
You know, as far as the number of lots, I think that what really equating it to is the neighboring property cornfield that's carved out the R18 size lots. So it's really tough to say whether, you know, it's 4 lots, 5 lots, 6 lots. We're really not sure at this point.
Right. But you're not tripling the amount of houses you can put in there with the zone, probably.
No.
And the cluster, the previous 1970s cluster is R18. The neighbor is R18 to the right of this map, and to the left is LI.
Yeah, to the left or the west is a mishmash of LI, R18, and R30. It's kind of just left alone, you know, standalone.
Okay.
Leftover zone, it looks like.
Is there any other questions or comments from the board? Can we get the shared screen back to you, David?
Yeah. Thank you.
So I can see people if they're waving. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing, and I would open it up to the general public. I do see Mike Bulkley raising his hand. So if you would, David will recognize each individual. If you would state your name and address for the board for the record, that would be great. Thank you.
Mike?
Yes, my name is Michael Bulkley. I'm a resident at 11 Haystack Road, which directly abuts the property. Just want to say that I've had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Marlowe and get a kind of an idea of what they're looking at. And I do think it's going to be very beneficial for our neighborhood. So just want to let you know that we are in favor of it. I think some of the properties there, I've been here for 13 years, and you know, I think the neighbors there are good people, but the properties have certainly got their age on them. And I think this is going to be beneficial to our property values. So the folks here at 11 Haystack are in favor.
Thank you. Great. Is there anyone else for the public who would like to speak?
Mr. Lynch.
Thank you. I'll be speaking a little bit more extensively later, but just for the record, Thomas Lynch. I'm the attorney for Patricia McAndrew, who's the owner of the property at 543 Plains Road. And I had previously sent an email, which is part of your list of documents on the website. But seeing that I am here on another matter tonight, I am speaking directly to you and stating my client's being in favor of this application. Kevin and I had talked about this earlier in terms of going through the prior drawing of the line on the zone map, and he and I both agreed that we've never really seen this type of situation. So I think that correcting it by changing the zone for the entire property to the R18 will make it more uniform with the Cornfield Road residences. And as Kevin also pointed out, on my client's property, there are 3 dwelling units. If you look at the vision appraisal site, there's 3 dwelling units, one of which I believe has a separate apartment. So there actually are 4 dwelling units on the site. So even if there are 4 or 5 or 6 single family residences, it doesn't greatly increase the density of the occupancy on the site. So just to reiterate, my client's in favor of this application as the property owner, and we'd ask that you do approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to scan for other hands. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? If you do, please wave your hand. Going once, going twice. There are no other hand wavers. No one else would like to speak.
Okay, so Kevin, if you have nothing else to add, I will close the public hearing.
I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a closed public hearing. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
Just to be clear, there's already 4 residences on this property, or just 4 structures that people may or may not be living in?
My understanding is that there's 3 buildings. One building houses 2 units. They probably predate zoning. Pretty old buildings back there. So it looks like there's 4 potential living units there now, and so it would obviously change if it's developed into single family homes.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, public hearing is closed. No more comments from or questions from the board. I would hear a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Peggy,
I move to approve as presented the petition of Kevin Krisagian Esquire for a change of zone on map 62, block 928, parcel 8, of which Patricia J. McAndrew is the owner.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second.
Mr. Cater. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Staddy here. I'd ask Ms. Kearney to consider an amendment to her motion that it indicate that there be a zone change to an R18. And the effective date would be 12/4/20.
Not the effective date can't be the 4th. The effective date needs to be the 18th. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's 2. You see on the motion, I'm sorry, on your proposed motion, there's 2 effective dates. One was for the last public hearing that we had to move. So the effective date should be 12/18.
So then I would ask that if she would consider an amendment to indicate the change of zone to R18, an effective date of December 18th, 2020. I move
Yes,
to the
that's
proponent.
Is that
That's fine.
okay with second as well? Mr. Cater.
I second it.
Okay. All right, good. Without further discussion. Brian?
No, I'm in favor.
Oh, I thought I heard you. I'm sorry. Without further discussion, we'll call the roll.
Ms. Austin,
With the motion?
Mr. Castagnoli,
In favor.
Mr. Cater,
In favor?
Mr. Collegian,
I'm with the
with the motion. Ms. Kearney,
With the motion?
Mr. Mortimer,
I'm with the motion.
Mr. Moore,
with the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion,
Mr. Zaharidis,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion. Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we go to the next item, I think we just need to announce again that if anyone is here waiting for 161 West Rutland Road, that has been postponed to the next meeting on December 15th.
Okay, well, you said it.
Yep, there you go.
It's done. Next order of business. 1314 Naugatuck Ave, Zone R18, petition of Kevin Krisagian Esquire for a proposed 6-lot subdivision on map 51, block 937, parcel 1 of which White Oaks Terrace LLC is the owner.
The record, Mr. Chairman, Kevin Krisagian again, 3 Lafayette Street here in Milford, representing White Oaks Terrace. The LLC. It is the contract purchaser of this parcel. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I think we lost your audio. Attorney Crusader.
Apologize. Hopefully the board
There we
should existing condition survey, or what was the existing conditions before the structures were taken down recently in the past month or so. This is a subdivision application. The proposal is zoning compliant according to our application and Mr. Sulcas's administrative summary. We have all of the agency approvals in, police, fire, engineering, which is requiring some road widening. To orient the board, this is Naugatuck Ave as you head towards Subway or Vic Drive going north and northwesterly direction. It's also sided or bounded by West Rutland Road, and then the properties on Beaverbrook. This was a very old house. I think it was the late 1800s. The house has been taken down. It's in the name of an estate. I think all the other structures have been taken down as well, and the property's been starting to clean up. If you had driven by this house, it was hidden by a lot of brush. I think there was a request through Public Works or a violation that the brush was hanging onto the road, and it's starting to be cleaned up now. It's a straightforward subdivision application. There's not too many subdivision applications. There used to be a lot more in Milford. It's for 6 lots. The driveway entrances are going to either be from Naugatuck Avenue or West Rutland Road. I have Ron Wasmer here with me tonight as the engineer on the property to answer any questions. We have sewer approval. I'm trying to think if there's any other specific agency approvals that were requested that we have, but we've had everything in. All the notices, it's at the board's discretion whether to hold a public hearing for a subdivision as opposed to a re-subdivision. I guess my understanding is the board has desired to hold public hearings on subdivision applications, but all the proper notices have been done or posted on the city website, especially in light of Governor Lamont's executive orders with respect to notice. So there's really not much to it. I can ask Ron to highlight a few points if he would like to take a minute and do so. I'll scroll down to this is the 6 lots as proposed.
Good evening.
To go through.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. As Kevin had mentioned, this is a 6-lot subdivision. The parcel is 2.91 acres. It's bounded on the southerly by Naugatuck Avenue, on the westerly by West Rutland Road, and on the northerly and easterly by residential parcels. The parcel is generally level topography. Each lot will be served by public water and sewer. We're proposing road improvements to Naugatuck Avenue in accordance with the city engineer's recommendations. We're also proposing new curbing and sidewalks along the entire street frontage of West Rutland and Naugatuck Avenue. Additional improvements include storm drainage and landscaping for street trees per the Milford landscaping regulations. Kevin, maybe we can just so in front of you now is the subdivision plan. It shows the 6 lots. It doesn't show any of the improvements. This is strictly for recording in the land records. If we can maybe scroll ahead to the next couple pages. This sheet we've entitled a zoning compliance sheet. It shows a feasible house being constructed on each lot well within the setback regulations. If you can scroll ahead, Kevin. This is a grading plan, shows the again the houses, the proposed driveways, storm drainage facilities, the road widening along Naugatuck Avenue. Okay, Kevin. This is a utility plan, just simplifying to show public water and sewer. Both public water and sewer exist in West Rutland Road and Naugatuck Avenue. We are proposing 2 new fire hydrants per the request of the Milford Fire Department. Those are indicated on this plan. Okay, Kevin. Just part of your regulations is sedimentation and erosion control. So this is a sedimentation and erosion control plan. Shows anti-tracking pads for each house, silt fence to be constructed around the site. Okay, Kevin. This plan highlights the road improvements, the proposed widening along Naugatuck Avenue. So we have a 30 foot of pavement. Right now, the road is much narrower than the 30 feet. West Rutland Road was reconstructed probably about 10 or 15 years ago when the subdivision to the west was built. So that is a 30-foot road. However, the curbs and sidewalks are at this point in some disrepair, so they'll be reconstructed in accordance with Public Works requirements. You can scroll ahead, Kevin. This is a landscaping plan. There's some areas of trees that we propose to remain, specifically along the northerly border. There's an old stone wall that's going to remain, and some trees along that old farm field, they'll remain. There's a cluster kind of in the northerly center of the property that will remain. There's quite a few scraggly trees along West Rutland and Naugatuck Avenue. They will all be removed, and street trees will be planted as indicated here on this plan in accordance with the Milford subdivision requirements for the street trees. And I think the rest is maybe some details of, concrete walk construction, drainage, road improvements. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, as Kevin mentioned, this is a conforming subdivision. We have favorable review from the various departments. I think the last review from the city engineer had requested some modifications. These plans reflect those modifications, but certainly we would accept his recommendations as the conditions of approval. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could take back screen sharing, David.
Yep.
Okay. David, if you would give us an overview.
Sure. The applicant is proposing a 6-lot subdivision with zoning compliant minimum 18,000 square foot lots. Although the applicant refers to compliance with the Milford street tree list, the applicant needs to specify the type of street trees that they want to install. As a condition of the board's approval, the recommendations of the city engineer in his letter dated 11/5/20 regarding work in the public right-of-way, letters A to F, should be addressed by the applicant. So if the board approves this tonight, the recommendations in your motion are for them to specify the actual street trees they want to use in accordance with our approved street tree list and the conditions of the city engineer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing. I would open this up for public comment. If you are interested in speaking on the matter, please give your name and address for the record, and either raise your hand electronically or raise your hand. Okay, I think we have Christopher Carveth raising his hand.
Chris Carvath, you're up. You have to unmute your microphone.
Chris, unmute.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Christopher Carveth, attorney at law, 26 Cherry Street, Milford. I represent Miss Rochelle Hudson, who is the executor of the estate of William Brensinger, the owner of the property. And certainly Attorney Crusaden gave an excellent presentation. We would just ask the board to give favorable consideration.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else would like to speak? Please raise your hand. I am scanning. I see no raised hands. Going once. Going twice. There are no further raised hands, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The applicant can have a closing statement before we close the public hearing, if they want.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, board.
Okay. So the public hearing is closed. Is there any further comment or discussion from the board? Seeing none, Meg, if you would please call the roll vote.
Need a motion, Mr. Quish?
We need a motion.
Oh, yeah, we have a motion. Thank you, Robert. Would you like to
I'll make a motion to approve as presented, I'm sorry, to approve with the following conditions, the petition of Attorney Kevin Crusaden for proposed 6-lot subdivision on map 51, block 937, parcel 1, of which White Oaks Terrace LLC is the owner. Proposed conditions: number 1, the applicant shall update the landscape plan to provide specific tree details, compliance with section 5.1 for the zoning regs. Number 2, the recommendation of city engineer in his letter dated November 5th of 2020 regarding work in the public right-of-way, letters A through F shall be addressed by the applicant.
I'll second.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and several seconds. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, Meg, now please.
Okay, be glad to. Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
In favor.
Mr. Cater,
In favor.
Mr. Collegian,
I move the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Sahardis,
In favor of the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I am in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next order of business is 127 Boston Post Road, Zone CDD1, petition of Thomas Lynch for special permit with site plan review and lot consolidation for a proposed automotive dealership on map 43, block 331, lots 2, 3, 14, and 15, of which Jordan Realty LLC and Perkins Family Partnership LLC are the owners.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, Thomas Lynch with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton. And my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I have the pleasure tonight to present this application on behalf of my client Subaru of New England Incorporated. That's a application for site plan review and a special permit to construct a new home for the Perkins Subaru dealership here in Milford, who's been operating for many, many years at its location at number 1 Boston Post Road, and now wants to develop this property in conjunction with Subaru of New England and move the dealership to this property at 127 Boston Post Road. I just at the outset wanted to introduce the board to the development team who's been working rather tirelessly over the last 6 months on this project. First of all, my client, Michael Clemmy, who's the Vice President of Property Management for Subaru of New England, is with us. I'm going to ask David to share the screen shortly with Jeff Board. Jeff is the project engineer with Bowler Engineering out of West Hartford, who's put together the site plan that he's going to go through all of the elements of with you shortly. And then lastly, I have joining us Sharon Charwick, Sharon is an architect with the architectural firm HFA Architects of Franklin, Massachusetts. Her firm has designed this beautiful state-of-the-art building, and she's going to go through the elements of the floor plans and the elevations for you. So just by way of background, this project will in fact create a new state-of-the-art facility for Perkins Subaru. Their current location, as all of us know from driving by the intersection of Boston Post Road and Bridgeport Avenue, is very overcrowded. The site has cars that are stored right virtually on top of Boston Post Road, circling the building, car carriers delivering cars, delivering them in the roadway of Boston Post Road at times. The facility itself is just overgrown, and they've been looking for a new site to develop, and have come across this site in conjunction with their contractual obligations with Jordan Realty and the Perkins limited partnership to purchase these properties. The facility will, in fact, create the largest Subaru dealership in New England. And David, Jeff, if you can scroll through the first couple of sheets just to go to the existing conditions, we're showing that this property is actually the combination of 4 parcels of land located between the Boston Post Road and Washington Street. The entire property is located in zone classification CDD1, and the CDD1 zone allows for a automobile dealership upon approval from the board of a site plan review and a special permit application. The property was formerly the corporate headquarters of the Beard Concrete Company for many, many years. That's the building, of course, that Jeff is circling in the western quadrant of the property. Also included in the Beard property are structures to the rear, fronting on Washington Street, with a residence and certain accessory buildings used in conjunction with the concrete business. The other parcel is the property to the east of that, formerly owned by the Gurman family. It was Gurman's Plaza for many years. It was then purchased by the Perkins Family Limited Partnership. The Planet Fitness gym is in that structure now, and all of the buildings on site, on the existing site, will be demolished to allow the construction of the new building. All of the zoning requirements are met through the site plan. This has received extensive review by David and by Greg Podleski, our city engineer. There were a number of comments early on that David had made and wanted certain modifications to the site plan to allow for proper setback of auto storage and compliance with our buffer requirements. But he and Jeff have worked together and come up with the final plan that's being presented to you tonight, which does meet all of the city's zoning requirements. The building, as I said, it's state-of-the-art facility with modern amenities, soundproofing, HVAC system. The building will be one story, one floor with a mezzanine level above. There'll be a total of 62,150 square feet in total. On site will be 460 parking spaces with 6 handicap spaces. A calculation of the per square foot requirement for this use comes up with 250 required parking spaces. So the 460 is far in excess. And of course, this is an automobile dealership, so the large number of parking spaces, in addition to what the building would require, is for storage and display of the automobiles. There'll be approximately 40 employees per shift working in the building. That's going to be no change from the current hours of operation or number of employees at the Perkins dealership now. And you'll see through the website and through the review of the documents that we've submitted All city departments have reviewed the plans and have issued memorandum of approval. The fire department, the police commission okayed the plan at its November meeting. The police commission the traffic division reviewed by Officer Craniac specifically found that with the 3 entrances on the Boston Post Road and 2 on Washington Street, there's proper sight lineage on both streets for ingress and egress onto the property. And it's noteworthy also, Jeff shows in the lower, basically the westerly boundary of the property, there's the existing traffic signal that was installed when the Big Y project went before the board a couple of years ago. So there is been new pavement in the area, new infrastructure improvements in the area, and a signal at that entrance that has already been installed. Lastly, the sewer commission administratively approved the sewer hookup, and there's no inland wetlands permit that's needed. So this has been extensively vetted by staff review and department review. We bring it to you as a conforming site plan that meets the zoning requirements. And I'm going to turn things over to Jeff now just to go through the elements of the site plan, and then turn things to Sharon to go through the building itself. But my client is very excited to get this going and really have this as a shining star for the Milford commercial corridor. So Jeff, if you want to take it from there, go ahead.
That was great. Thank you, Tom. And for the record, my name is Jeff Ford. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering. We're located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford, Connecticut. And as Tom alluded to, what you're looking at here, with north being to the left of page for the majority of my slides here, is Washington Road bordering to the east, Boston Post Road bordering to the west. There's a Milford skate park bordering to the north here, and another commercial property bordering to the south. Site slopes generally slope from west to east from Boston Post Road to Washington Street. There are a series of existing dry wells within the Planet Fitness parking lot that, if filled up and in an overland situation, they would make their way out, and everything makes its way out to Washington Street. So I'll get into the proposed drainage in a little bit as I get into the site design here. And here we wanted to introduce a site plan north to the left of the side of the page again. And what you're looking at is a colorized version of our site plan with the landscaping shown. So this is the site plan that's currently before you this evening. As Tom had alluded to, we are proposing a flagship Subaru dealership with a total footprint of 50,970 square feet. With the mezzanine, it's totaling the 62,150 that Tom had mentioned. The building has a maximum height of 34 feet, where 40 feet is allowed, so we're compliant there. Tom also mentioned that there are 460 parking spaces. We did, at the planning director's discretion, delineate parking spaces from inventory versus customer parking versus employee parking. So that was submitted through multiple iterations of site plans. And just before I get into any further changes that we've made in the site in general, I did just want to take a minute to thank the city staff. It's rare that we get to work with them up front and kind of go through this iterative design process that takes place when you're designing a site like this, and to kind of collaborate and work through some of these issues throughout these iterations provides a much better product, a final product, if you will. So it's much appreciated from our end, and I know the clients as well. Concrete curbs have been proposed throughout the site and also within both right-of-ways. The work within Boston Post Road, which we've also noted on the plans, is subject to DOT approval. Basically, once we get the local entitlement approval here, we will be submitting an encroachment permit application to the DOT. And one of the major benefits to something like this, and I think ultimately the police chief had noticed as well, was in these locations here and here, we're closing up 2 curb cuts. So it's rare that in a redevelopment situation that we're able to actually close or reduce the amount of curb cuts. So I know that will go a long way with the DOT. We are maintaining the signalized intersection that was recently installed. As you were aware from the existing aerial, the Ritas was sitting here to the north. So this driveway and sidewalk was recently reconstructed as part of this signalized intersection here. We were proposing sidewalks in the limit of our disturbance. However, throughout the review process, we have agreed and have installed proposed sidewalks basically from property line to property line on both Boston Post Road and on Washington Street as part of the city comments that we had addressed. But we also provided pedestrian connectivity to the site via a crosswalk. We also provided this 10-foot buffer strip. What you see here, and this was kind of a key element that was discussed with city staff. What you see in orange along the perimeter is a 10-foot strip, basically, that encompasses the entire site. And we're happy to say that, you know, different from their current facility where cars are parked kind of right up near the road, and they're offloading cars within Boston Post Road at their current facility. This one not only provides, I believe it's 15 to 20 feet of setback to the property line, but we're also providing an additional 10 feet of buffer, which is exclusively a landscape buffer. There's no structures, light pole bases, flag poles, car inventory, nothing's within that buffer other than landscaping. So that was a big accomplishment. And from a design standpoint, it was a challenging one, but we made it work as we were going through the process here. There are car displays flanking the parking area to the north here, and then flanking either side of the driveway here. This middle driveway, if you will, is a right in, right out only, whereas the two on either end of the site, south and north, are both full access maneuvers. We have run the vehicular templates through the site, so their car carrier can circulate the site, and it can get out in multiple ways. It can get out via Washington Street, via this curb radius, or it can circulate the site, and with this radius being where it is, are allowed to exit Boston Post Road as well. So it creates a much better and a much safer condition when they're offloading vehicles compared to their current location at 1 Boston Post. Let's see, we're providing U-bollards as part of the regulations, basically anywhere where we have a sidewalk. So along this whole front portion here, there's what look like U-channel bollards, basically, that would prevent a car from being able to drive through and potentially, you know, help avoid a pedestrian conflict. So that's basically on Boston Post Road to the west. And then there's those bollards as well in these parking areas to the east. Let's see here. About that. We also provided, there are 2 residential properties to the east here. Part of the regulations require a fence to screen both of those. So what we did per regulation was the first 100 feet of that fence, and it's a vinyl gray fence, is at 3 feet in height. And then after that, and it's for sightline reasons, but after that, it goes to 6 feet in height, and it ties into the adjacent fence with the skate park here. So I know the owner will be working hand in hand as this is constructed with the skate park next door to ensure that these fences line up and that they marry up well. There are electric charging stations as well in this location here, just to the north of the building. There are drive-up service bays. If any of you have Subarus, and I myself do, it's very convenient to be able to drive up to one of these service bays, and basically the doors roll up and you're able to go in and safely talk to a customer representative inside the building before they take your car to be serviced. So it actually makes for a pretty safe condition all around here. We are proposing a 55-foot flagpole that's within the regulated setback, or outside of the regulated setbacks in this location here. That was also vetted by planning staff throughout the process, and we had shifted it back to ensure compliance with those setbacks. It is worth noting here in light blue, there's an existing billboard. If any of you are familiar with this area or have driven by it, probably countless times a day, that existing billboard is to remain, and we're proposing a pylon sign in the front where the existing Planet Fitness sign currently is today, and then a monument sign to the east or southeast corner of the site along Washington, under the allowable 200 square feet per code. I did want to clarify too, one comment that was made earlier. There are in fact 7 handicap accessible stalls, and 2 of which are van accessible, and that basically goes hand in hand with the regulations for the standard duty parking spaces that are in line. So it meets the current accessibility guidelines that we're required to meet. Another really neat feature of the site, and this was an exciting site in general for us, but it was a pretty neat commemorative park, if you want to call it that, at the northeast corner that commemorates the Beard family. And we had professional landscape architects within our firm come up with this little seating area, basically, that's got a nice bench. It's got a placard that basically speaks to the Beard family history and the ownership of this property. So it's kind of a nice homage to the family and kind of where we've come from and how this was there today. So we left that there, landscaped it appropriately. We have provided shade trees and ornamental trees throughout the site along the perimeter, certain requirements that we have met from the town regulations, and as well as meeting the interior landscape calculations. We were required to hit 10% of the landscape or the interior landscape, and I believe we were at 17%. So we exceeded the requirement for the interior landscape island. And there was an exhibit within your set of plans that highlighted that in green. And let's see what else. We have provided some ground shrubs and ground covers at the building foundation along the front here. And ornamental trees and ground cover at the entrances to spruce it up. Ideally, this is going to be again, as Tom alluded to, this is going to be their largest store in New England and kind of their flagship store. And it's going to look really nice, and we're excited to be a part of it here. With regards to lighting, I'll get into all the lighting has been designed. They're slim LED light fixtures. They're all dark sky compliant. We have taken particular caution along the boundaries with the residential as well as the other property lines for the zero spillage requirements that the town has, or the city has in place. And then I'd like to go quickly to the utility plan and stormwater drainage plan. Basically what you're looking at here is it's just a colorized version of the current utility plan within your set, north being to the left of page. In pink is the proposed sanitary sewer. And basically what's happening there, and it's a good thing that it's happening, is the fact that the sewer line in Boston Post Road, or on the Boston Post Road frontage, is actually about 10 feet behind the curb line. So that was really good planning when that had gone in. So there's no unnecessary cuts that are needed into Route 1 to install that. So basically it's getting installed about 10 feet off of the Boston Post Road. So there's no unnecessary curb cuts for utilities to be heard of here. With regards to the proposed water main, we are proposing domestic and fire off of an existing Washington Street line. We had put this in front of the fire department early on, and one of the comments was to provide a fire hydrant to the south of the building, which we have provided here. There's also an existing hydrant across the street at Washington Street as well, and the fire truck circulates the site just fine, given the car carrier is much larger and circulates as well. So we looked at that pretty extensively with the fire official here. Proposed electric, there is a transformer that's screened with landscaping in this island to the southwest. The primary feed is basically tying off of an existing utility pole where the current Planet Fitness and Rita's power is pulled from. So that primary goes to the transformer, and then the secondary run goes into the building here. And conveniently, all the utilities have been located in this utility corridor on the south here. There is an oil water separator that will house the sanitary, which I forgot to mention when I was discussing the sanitary, and basically for the car wash component and any of the interior drains that will feed through the sanitary system and ultimately clean before discharging into the city sewer here. Proposed gas, we're sharing the same trench actually coming out here to the water main, just to reduce the amount of cut into Washington Street. And then the biggest thing on here is with regards to the stormwater management. It's something that basically when we do a design like this, we're looking to reduce the peak flow rates for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. We have done that, and we've also at the same time mimicked the existing drainage patterns, and we did that in accordance to the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. So it's a well-designed stormwater management plan given the existing conditions, as I described earlier, where there's just certain dry wells up in this location here that when we were on site, they're completely filled with debris. There's concrete and dirt debris all the way up almost to the rim. So the fact that those are now being cleaned out, we're taking that water that was there, redirecting it to basically 2 underground water quality recharge structures to the east here, before ultimately discharging into the existing storm line in Washington Street. So it's a pretty extensive system. We're treating the necessary water quality volume, and not only are we treating it, we're exceeding it by about 9,000 cubic feet from what the code requires. And that recharge is taking place within the structure. There's also mechanical vortechnic units that treat water quality flow before entering the system. And then there's deep sump hooded catch basins. So it's kind of a belt and suspenders approach to this before it exits and into the city system. Also, the erosion control was a pretty big point of topic during the review process here. We can say that we have designed it in accordance to the 2002 Connecticut Erosion and Sediment Control Guidelines. There are 2 anti-tracking pads at the 2 major intersections here that are both 50 feet in length that will remain in place until the site is stabilized. There's silt fence along the perimeter. There's a temporary stockpile location in this location. And we provided it in kind of 2 stages, where the first stage would be the excavation of the foundations and the stormwater drainage. And then we provided temporary sediment traps throughout construction, that all of those measures would stay in place until construction had commenced and ceased. And they'd be periodically reviewed and kind of looked at by an engineer as far as whether or not they were standing. And with that, I wanted to turn it over to Sharon Sharwick with HFA Architects. She was just going to briefly walk you guys through the proposed floor plans, elevations, and then a site plan rendering that really showcases the site and what this will look like.
David, you need to give someone else share screen possibility.
Doing it now.
Yeah, I'm sharing, David. I got the architecturals up here. I think Sharon, you're muted, I think.
Okay, good.
Looks like she's trying to get on here.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
Thank you, Seth. As you mentioned, my name is Sharon Charwick. I'm a designer with HFA. I work in the local office here in Franklin, Massachusetts. And I'm excited to take a minute to walk you guys through both the floor plans and the elevations for this beautiful new car dealership. What we're looking at currently is the latest floor plan set. And I just wanted to go through some of the key features of this new dealership, one of them being a 6-car showroom, about 6,000 square feet of showroom that will view right out onto Boston Post Road. There's also a very large modern customer lounge right adjacent to the showroom that also has views right out onto Boston Post Road. And as Jeff had mentioned, there's the large drive up for service that's conveniently located. You can fit 12 cars in there. It's a great feature of the dealership. There are 39 service bays, as well as some additional cleanup bays and a car wash at the rear of the building. And then all of the necessary support spaces, such as locker rooms, break rooms, sales offices, and lots of part storage, retail, everything that a modern showcase dealership would have. Up on the mezzanine level, which you can see, thank you, Jeff, we have some additional administrative elements up here, some additional offices, another staff break room, and a lecture room or conference room with a open walkway that looks down over onto the 2-story showroom, which is really the highlight of this space. If you go ahead and flip over to the elevations, I'll walk through kind of what the look and feel of the building is and identify the key materials that we'll be using. Down at the bottom of the page, the northwest elevation, that's right at Boston Post Road. You can see the large expanse of curtain wall glazing that is that 2-story showroom. This is all, modern aluminum curtain wall systems, very energy efficient, durable, low E glazing. You also see the feature tower element, which is a signature of the Subaru of New England dealership. It's clad in a beautiful slate mosaic. The majority of the building has a composite metal panel as the exterior finish. Again, that's an extremely durable material. It is energy efficient, insulated. It's going to hold up well over time, and it provides a really beautiful metallic silver neutral color. You have a couple little pops of the signature Subaru blue throughout. And for durability, on the front facade here on Boston Post Road at the base, we've used that beautiful slate as the base of the building to provide durability in the climate that we have. On the northeast elevation, you're seeing the side of the showroom and then the side of that large drive-up service area. So again, on the service area, we've continued to use the mosaic slate at the base, the composite metal panel, and that little accent of the signature Subaru blue. You're also seeing the side of the service bays. Here we're using a vertically seamed insulated metal panel. So again, extremely durable, very energy efficient. You're going to have a high quality metallic finish that will be easy to clean and will hold up well. The base here would be a ground face CMU block. And looking at the elevation on Washington Street, something that was raised as something to be very sensitive to was the adjacent neighborhoods. And we wanted to be respectful by lowering the mass of the building in this area and by also using the same high quality finishes that we used on Boston Post Road, repeating those on Washington Street. So you can see that we're using the high quality slate as the base, we're using the composite metal panel and that signature blue accent at the roof line. And the scale of it is just much smaller in the back. So we're really not treating this like the back of the facility. We're really being respectful of the fact that we want all sides of the facility to be something that everyone wants to look at. On the southwest elevation, again, you're just seeing the other side of that showroom, how the glazing wraps the corner. And there's a little canopy there in the signature blue that is for new car delivery, which is a great feature of a modern dealership. And you see on all of the facades, I'll point out that we have a lot of windows. We wanted to make sure that we're using energy efficient curtain walls to provide lots of daylight and natural views to all the employees inside. So I think it's going to be a beautiful, modern, and just a beautiful new dealership. If you want to go ahead, Jeff, and flip to the rendering that we prepared, this is a view of the Boston Post Road, coming up into that new service drive. Obviously, you see those elements that we just discussed. There's lots of glazing into the two-story showroom, that iconic tower that's covered in slate with the Subaru logo. And obviously, we're showing off all those cars with the beautiful metallic silver palette. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jeff. I'm sorry, to Tom.
All right. Thanks, Sharon. So that's our presentation to you. And I think you can appreciate the time and the effort that has gone into this. We first met with Joe and David and Greg Podleski and Mary Rose on a Zoom meeting back in July. Jeff's first submission of plans was shortly after that. And David worked very closely with Jeff. And I think Jeff's comments speak for themselves in terms of the amount of time that went into this. Revisions were made, but what we're presenting to you now at your public hearing is the basically the finished product of a well thought out site plan, beautifully designed building by Sharon and her firm. And like I said before, my clients are just excited to have a beautiful new home and have this really be a wonderful addition to the commercial corridor in Milford. So that's the extent of our presentation to you. We're available for any questions that you may have, and look forward to you acting favorably on this. Thanks so much.
Thank you. That was a very nice presentation. David, would you give us an overview?
Sure. The applicant is proposing a new Subaru car dealership to be located on a newly formed lot of 255,571 square feet, consolidated from 4 existing parcels. The proposed building has 50,970 square feet on the first floor, and the second floor is 11,214 square feet for a total building of 62,184 square feet. The required amount of parking per 5.1 is 249 spaces based on the size of the building. 41 parking spaces are being provided for employees, 309 spaces for the inventory, and 110 regular parking spaces. 7 handicapped spaces are provided, with 2 being van accessible. The total number of provided parking spaces is 460. Landscaping and buffers are zoning compliant. The overall plan is substantially zoning compliant. Some minor engineering issues need to be resolved, so approval can be conditioned on satisfying the city engineer as specified in his letter of 11/30/2020.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I have some questions, Mr. Quish, please.
Mr. Zadi.
Thank you. I really appreciate the presentation. So some of the questions might be going to the architect, some of them to Mr. Board, and then Mr. Lynch can chime in. The first question I have is the existing square footage of the building that's there now compared to what is being proposed. Does anybody have that number? I couldn't find it quickly in the materials you sent to us.
Well, there's actually, there's a combination of 4 parcels, Bob. So
Right.
there's the Gurman Plaza, which Jeff, I don't know if you have that handy, those square footages.
I do not. I could try to get it pretty quickly here.
The reason I'm very familiar with the property, the design has changed substantially. So I guess this probably goes back to the architect. I really like the presentation, but the problem I have is the service base to the left as you come off the post road. That's a very clogged area with traffic. And if you're going to be having cars trying to go in there in the early morning for service, is that not going to present a problem? And did you consider it and how did you address that?
I can take some of that. I think just being a Subaru owner myself and having visited these quite frequently for oil changes here. And I'll share my screen if I could pull it up again real fast. So basically there is enough stacking here for 3 vehicles in all 3 lanes. So that's 9 stacking vehicles. And also, as Sharon had pointed out, not only are there 9 outside, you're rarely waiting for more than a minute before one of these service doors open, because these bays can fit 12 cars internally. You know, other dealerships who have similar, you know, designs like this with these service bays don't have the capacity to handle the 12 internal cars. So we're confident that stacking beyond this main drive aisle will not be an issue. So hopefully that helps to answer some of that question. But most of the time, at least when I've been, there's been 4 to 6 cars at most within this vicinity here. And again, it can fit up to 12 plus up to an additional 9 in these 3 service bays. It's about 20.
I think that does answer it. And I because I also like the cut that you have on the far, and your document that you have, the far right of that. I like that cut because that was always a problem getting into this facility. So this is going to Mr. Board. And I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the drainage, because you are going downhill towards Washington Street.
Yep.
And at the very end, you indicated that the drainage would go somewhere, but I don't understand where it's going to be going to. Is that a sewer main? The blue, I think, is what you show us.
Yeah, the blue here is the water. What's in yellow basically is the stormwater conveyance. So basically we're catching it into a series of catch basins throughout the site. It's going through the stormwater piping while it's getting treated with the hydrodynamic separators prior to entering the system. Then the water is detained and recharged in these underground systems here. And basically there's 2 of them that not only provide water quality, they also provide attenuation to reduce the flow rates. So right now, in existing conditions, if these dry wells were to fill up and all of the overland flow basically makes its way over the curb line or over the curb here and into a series of catch basins along Washington Street. So all we're simply doing is taking it, and you can see it if I zoom in here, actually, there's an existing storm pipe in the dashed line here. We're dropping a manhole on top of that existing storm pipe. So the flow that was basically coming over land, getting to the curb line and then going into the catch basins is being captured and treated before entering the same system. So not only are the flow rates being reduced, we also don't have the potential contamination, if you will, that could come off of Washington Street with that water. So it's kind of twofold, but that's in theory where it's going right to this. And you can see there's even existing catch basin in this location, and we're tying into that storm pipe.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I have no further questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I just have one quick question.
Nancy?
So as far as, the truck deliveries and stuff like that, like my only concern is with them exiting on Washington Street. I worked in the car industry and I know sometimes they get dropped overnight. Is there a way for you guys to not have those trucks exiting onto Washington and back onto the Post Road if they're dropping overnight?
Yeah, I mean, I can address that. We have two options basically for trucks to exit the site. It is the preferred option to have trucks exiting the Washington Street. And as far as the frequency of drop-offs, I can let Tom or Michael weigh in on that. But we do have the option that if we need it, they can come out to Boston Post Road. The reason why we try to avoid the main road and knowing how heavily traveled the Route 1 corridor is those trucks are rather large, and making that swing coming out of here can be problematic. And we've run into situations where the DOT comments on that as part of the design process. So that's why we had provided, the larger radius curb cut here. And I mean, that kind of helps to identify at least the horizontal geometry on how it works and what the thought process was in including this. It just makes for a cleaner move through the site, and then you can exit straight out as opposed to having to circulate the corner of the building here and make your way through the entire parking lot, and even conflicting with this other driveway here. So
No, I totally understand that. And I think that's great. I really do. I'm just concerned sometimes, deliveries come in the evening and, interfering with any, how's, it is a disturbance when you're looking at it and abutting to residential.
Hey, David, would you give back the screen share to Jeff and have him show us where trucks are going to, the transport vehicles are going to be offloading or unloading cars?
Sure. Jeff, you want to pull that up? There you go.
Coming up soon. Is it up?
Yep.
All right. So basically what we have modeled here is the trucks would be entering from the signal, which the DOT would prefer as well. They enter the signal here. The radiuses of all these curves are strategically designed to accommodate that truck swing coming around the side here. And then basically that movement I was talking about, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen, so I was drawing this motion here for you guys. It goes straight out the back to Washington, as opposed to coming around the corner of the building here and then having kind of a potential conflict with this driveway. And then it cuts the corner here where the radius was designed to accommodate the truck, and it can come out this way. The tricky part being is that once we get through local entitlements here, the DOT will review it, and granted, we have the capacity to pull out this way. If the truck was going to make a left-hand turn, being this is an unsignalized intersection, it would make it for a hard left-hand turn coming out for a tractor trailer of that size. So what this turn does out of Washington Street is it makes that, one, a straight through, and then two, the truck driver comes down to the signalized intersection where it's a much more safe maneuver. So that's why we had proposed the second option. Whether or not there's a time restriction on exiting, trucks exiting this direction. Obviously, late at night, the traffic along Route 1 isn't as bad as if it was a peak hour or during the day. So I think it is a benefit that there are two alternatives here.
No, I think that's great. I think, that's very well thought out. As we all know, those when they park on, on Route 1 and stuff like that, it can be a nightmare. And we've all seen what has unfortunately happened sometimes when they are unloading on Route 1. So I think this is a great plan. I'm not disputing that. I just, it abuts a residential area. So,
Completely understand.
Cars get dropped overnight.
Completely understand.
I'm wondering, how often do you anticipate deliveries to be made in a typical week? Because Washington Street, is residential, so it going to be a bit of a disruption for them for sure.
Yeah, Michael and Tim, are you on as far as the operations and
Tim, can you weigh in on that?
Yes, Michael Tomey here from Subaru, New England, and with Jim Toomey here in Norwood, Massachusetts, and thank everyone for having us representing this very exciting project. And great team we put together here, well thought out. And initially, you know, there'll be some car carriers with new cars coming in, but he'll be getting 3 loads a week basically, and those will be delivered, you know, during the day, early evening. I can't see that, you know, the norm will be, you know, late at night and way into the late hours. That is very untypical of us delivering the automobiles. So you're basically looking, you know, during the day, early evening, the deliveries will be. And the way that we work through it is when you come off the Washington Street, we'd like you to take a right out of the site and be safe. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. And it's obviously an improvement over the old location. So I'm just trying to work it through. But thank you. That does answer my question.
Thank you. And Tom, could you just identify, you know Milford better, on the where that potential car carrier is exiting, taking a right on Washington Street, directly across the street? What is currently right there?
Well, that's zone CDD one as well, but when you travel down Washington heading towards the traffic light at West Avenue, there is a apartment complex there on Washington Street, and then you have commercial buildings. You have where Bobette's was. Here's the overview right here.
I was going to say, doesn't it come out like where Bobette's and it used to be West Shore Motors?
Yep, right there. Yep. So you come down Washington and then you come up to the traffic signal here. That's where Bobette's is, right here.
Right,
Okay.
right down, yeah.
So the only Nancy, the only residential one is the MetroStar former Smithcraft. I don't know who owns it now. These apartments here at the end of Washington, but across from the site itself, you see that there's 2 large industrial buildings right here.
Right, okay.
So you'll be coming out of the site, taking a right and coming down here and then taking a right to go up to Route 1.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions from the board or comments?
Glad to hear again to Mr. Lynch. I believe I've been to the site many times that if you're leaving the rear of the property, you would take a left, which is all commercial property, and you would go a very short distance. There's a hot dog, a lobster hut. So basically, you're not going to be going through residential areas.
Right.
I don't mean to disagree with Mr. Lynch, but I think the most safest way is to leave is take the left out of the rear, go approximately 300 yards to the post road, and you're right on an exit there.
I'm missing that. Say it again. Robert.
Yeah, can you say that again?
Are you talking about going out to the post road?
Yeah, but
You're talking about going out to Washington Street.
When you come out to the rear, Washington Street,
right,
you would take a left out of the property. You'll go to the intersection where the lobster truck is, and then you'd be getting onto the post road there. You can go the opposite way as Mr. Lynch pointed out, but I think the quickest way is to take the left out of the parking lot, not go into the crossover and 95. You go back to the left and you get right on exit 34 there, 35.
Yeah, but Bob, if you
You're
do that, you have
confused.
all this residential area that you're going through.
Yeah,
You know, these are all residences. And then what you do is you hit Clark Street, you take a left-hand turn on Clark to come back out to the post road. So you're going through all of this area, which is residential. If you're following my cursor, all right?
I think you have the
Past
cursor in the wrong place.
Washington
I'm trying to help
Field.
you, Tom, but that's
We
okay.
have a couple of cursors going.
Yeah.
he's better going right than he is going left out of the parking lot.
Yeah, if you come out here, the rear of the property, Bob, and you travel down here, okay, here, this is all residential here. There's apartments, condos here. You have another apartment building here that Tom Colucci built right on the corner. You
We're
have,
not seeing your cursor, Tom.
I think, Tom, I got control of that. I'm not sure how to give you control.
okay, I'm seeing it on my screen. You're not seeing my cursor. Go
Yes.
ahead. Go ahead. Yep.
So basically, the residential, I think he's referring.
Right, there's a whole residential area right there.
You know, and ultimately, the radius that we showed, the intent of it really was to take that right-hand turn. And when you're turning right, obviously, you're going to be turning into the right-hand lane, hence the reason for that radius. You know, ideally, because of the residential, we wouldn't turn left. But, you know, I think ultimately the safer maneuver is to go this way. And we had looked at both options, and that's the conclusion that we had come to.
And you have your radius, Jeff, designed to take the right.
Oh, correct.
Right. Okay.
Also, can I jump in? This is Jim Cater. I live kind of near that area, and I see trucks all the time getting stuck over on West Clark Road over there and over by Hill Street over there. So I don't think you want to go left at all. It's really bad on trucks. They cannot maneuver through there. They're getting stuck backing up. So the way they've got it designed is by far the best way.
Well, you also have that crazy rotary right behind Gusto's restaurant. That I don't know how people maneuver through there without getting into accidents on a good day.
And
it's crazy there.
To your point as well is that manufacturing industrial building here just to the north, if you're seeing my cursor now, that in addition to the residential, all that truck traffic is currently coming onto Hill Street, and it describes that kind of goes to what you just said about all the truck traffic kind of backing up this whole area already. So that was another reason for that right-hand turn.
So, yeah, I understand that. So at one point, if you can get a truck out onto the post road and have it take a right and then go to Plains Road to get back on the highway, that might be an alternative as well. It may take, you know, you said you had a turning radius over to the rear right of the property, you know, an issue there, but you have so many extra parking spaces, you could probably adjust to have that be, if you go back to your colorized site plan. Jeff.
Yep, I was just waiting for David here. Let me see, share screen. Share.
So you have two trees to the rear and the right of the building, right? And then you go a little further to the right, and you're concerned about a turning radius to get out to the post road.
Oh, no, just to clarify that we had designed it. So basically, in the event that you couldn't go out the Washington Street side, the second option for that car carrier, they can make this turn. We designed this radius.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
we have
so that's not a bad alternative. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Right.
Like I said. And
So,
that
like,
is a late.
my question was when, you know, God, you know, because we all know sometimes a truck gets delayed, they can make that turn and come out back to the post road and not disrupting anybody on Washington.
Exactly right. And if it's
That's
late,
what I'm saying.
and it's an
I
offshoot.
got you. Okay, good. It's clear now.
Yep.
Right. You got the radius there to do it, and maybe Mike and Tim can just direct the drivers that if they arrive on site after a certain time, not to go out Washington, but go this way.
And if it's late,
That's exactly what I was saying. It's basically, we all know it's not this isn't going to be the rule. It can be the exception. Like there are times they get dropped, truckers get delayed, that type of thing. So if they're after, you know, the facility is closed and they're dropping new cars, they drop them and they make that turn back out, because we know that traffic flow is going to be a lot less, and they'll be able to pull back out onto, you know, Route 1, whether they're going north or south.
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Agreed.
Cool. Great.
Mr. Chairman?
Are there any other questions or comments from the board before we open up the public hearing?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Michael Clummy again. Just want to rest assure the board is we are Subaru New England, and Evan and his dad, Dan Perkins, own Perkins Subaru. And we own all the car carriers. We have 16 car carriers, so we don't sub that out at all. And all our car carriers are fairly within 2 to 3 years old, within 400,000 miles. We upgrade them. We have all the same drivers have been with us over 25, 30 years. They take great pride in delivering the cars. And one of the reasons why we were really intent of doing the design for the car carrier is to make it easy on our guys as much as it is to make it easy on the Perkins Subaru. And so its safety is very, very important to us. And I can assure you the car carriers will be very respectful, pulling on and off that site at any given time. And you have my guarantee on that because they work directly for me.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions or comments before we open up the public hearing? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. We would invite the public's input. If you'd like to speak, either signal electronically or with the wave of a hand, do state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, I am looking and I don't see anybody. No one is waving a hand. No one is raising a blue hand. So it appears there is no one who would like to speak. Going once, going twice. That's it.
Okay, so Attorney Lynch, if you would like to have the last word, you may.
I think we've said it all. I think it's a great building. It's a great design, and we'd ask that you approve it and let Mike get going, building that beautiful new dealership for Dan Perkins.
Okay, public hearing is closed. If there's no further comments or questions from the board, I would hear a motion.
I'll give one.
All right, Mr. Cater.
I move to approve as presented the petition of Thomas Lynch for a special permit with the site plan review and lot consolidation for proposed automotive dealership on map 43, block 331, lot 2, 3, 14, 15, of which Jordan Realty LLC and Perkins Family Partnership LLC are the owners.
Great, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Chair.
We have a second.
I just have.
Do we have a motion and a second? Is there any discussion on the motion?
I have.
Oh, yes.
With the proposed conditions that the applicant shall satisfy the conditions of the city engineer as described in his letter dated 11/30/20.
Yeah, what she said.
Thank you. So Mr. Cater's okay with the
Sure, that's perfect.
amended motion. How about the second?
Second.
Okay, the second's okay with the amended language. Thank you. And Meg, if you would, please call the vote.
Okay. Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
In favor.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
The motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion,
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion,
Mr. Moore,
With the motion.
Mr. Sadi,
With the motion.
Mr. Zaharidis,
In favor.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm in favor.
Thank you.
So that's unanimous, and I'd like to wish you well with your endeavor.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening to all the presentation.
Thank you very,
Yep.
thank you
Good
very
luck.
much. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much. I look forward to coming down there and seeing you at the grand opening.
Great, thank you.
Take care.
Take care,
So,
guys.
next is old business. I don't think there's any. Liaison reports. Nothing. Subcommittee reports. We will tentatively have our subcommittee meetings, our next meeting concurrent with the 12:15 regular scheduled meeting. That looks to be light, and if we could accommodate everything, I believe if the 15th meeting gets a lot of stuff happening, we will pick a different day for the subcommittees. But the last subcommittee meeting minutes are available online. Next order of business is approval of minutes. Do we have a motion?
we'll make a motion to
Peggy,
approve.
Second.
I second.
Without objection? Approved. Chair's report, I have none except to just thank everybody for, putting up with the electronic meetings and all that entails. Next is staff report.
You should be seeing your proposed 2021 schedule. We have to adopt the schedule at this time of year. We do it every year this time of year for next year. So the only days that are out of sync are September 8th and November 3rd.
And why is September 8th, not September 7th?
Because I believe that is the Jewish New Year.
Okay. Okay, so we have it in front of us. We have a motion for approve.
Motion.
Peggy, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Nancy, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Post
Thank you.
adjournment.
Thank you.
Have a good night now.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.